have it, and it's going to be,
Yeah.
it's, you know what? I'm scared to death of it, to be honest. I'd rather
Well,
not have it.
that's what. Well, not having it. I mean, there's good things about it. I mean, for example, Neuralink. I mean, there's people that are going to be are going to have much better lives when Neuralink is pushed through.
Right.
But I think that as much as I don't want to go there because I don't want to stir the pot too much, but Elon said it about 4 or 5 years ago. Laws are got to be put on AI. We got to put guidelines on them because if they go off the rail, we're fucked.
But there'll always be bad guys. There'll always be bad guys.
I know, but I agree. But something's got to counter the bad guys. I mean,
yeah, I agree.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if you've seen this, but Elon was actually asked to go to, I forget this special place where there's this army school. I don't forget what it is there. It's where they school the top soldiers in America, and he was brought in, and they had a discussion with him, and this is about a few weeks ago, and he told him the next war will be drones. Because you're not going to have soldiers win against drones. A drones is going to have the accuracy of the drone shooting is going to outdo anything that humans can do.
Yes, and they're having problems with that right now because a lot of the issues that we have as a military in the Middle East is a lot of the bad guys, we'll just call them bad guys, are building $3,000 drones that carry explosives that are way worse than a grenade, and we're launching billion-dollar missiles at these people that are flying 5,000 fucking drones, and taking out tons of shit. And there's a whole thing with the Houthis. Those guys are launching $3,000 missiles at our ships, and they go take them out, and it costs us $1 billion to take out a bunch of guys that live in goddamn caves.
Exactly. Did you see there was an amazing video? Apparently there was a U.S. reporter who was embedded with some Russian troops in Ukraine, and there was a video released today of a Ukrainian drone that is tracking the truck, and these guys are just screaming, move, because the fucking drone is just flying at the truck, and they're shooting at it with shotguns.
Yeah, in the beginning, the Ukrainians were winning because of the drones, but it didn't take Russia too long to figure that shit out. In the beginning of the war, it took them an hour and a half to respond to something that Ukraine did. Now it takes them like 2 minutes. Now Ukraine can launch something and they fire back at wherever it came from. And that wasn't the case in the beginning. So things, it's just weird shit, man.
Oh yeah.
It's very weird shit. And speaking of weird shit, here we are, thinking out loud with friends.
Here we
252 times. No music today. No music. No music.
Does that work for you?
Yeah. The beautiful thing about it is that welcome everybody, 252 times. Everything you hear today is an opinion, and we have plenty of opinions today. Plenty of opinions. And one opinion we were talking about, AI and all that before we went online. But what do you think about this 23andMe business?
I just deleted my
data. I never did it.
Sorry, I'm not aware of this. Could you?
I've heard of it. What is that about?
23andMe was a company where you would send in a
Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Chapter 11 is reorganization. But like me,
well, let's hear from Wayne. Wayne, why don't you tell us what it is?
Well, you would send them a DNA sample or something like that, and so it was well, I don't know if it was DNA, but
we had a spit in a tube. Spit in a tube.
Sample.
Basically an ancestry way to do it through DNA.
Yeah.
Okay, and
so it's an ancestry tracking site.
Okay.
Well, now they're going bankrupt, and so now you got 15 million people that submitted their DNA, and they have that data. Where's that data go?
Exactly.
I got to reiterate a little bit.
They had a data breach, so that's one of the reasons I think they're going bankrupt is they had a data breach. So now all the people that are their clients, all that information's out on the dark web now.
Yeah, but not all of the DNA data. They lost the informational data about, names, birthdays, things like that.
Unbelievable.
Excuse me. But the purpose of the somebody else has to talk right now while I get a drink of water.
So,
Yeah, so
anyways,
anyway, they would
I
collect your
would never do that.
DNA and then they would comparatively look at your DNA and then they
Right.
would show you who your DNA relatives are.
I don't really
It
give a
was
shit.
more than that. It was more than that. They were able to tell you, in other words, what health issues you might
Oh, yes.
have dealing with you with what your DNA was. It also told you where it did a history report on your ancestry, like where you came from. I
Right.
found that I was a Neanderthal. I mean, you could look at me and see I'm a Neanderthal. What the hell?
I see traces of that in there. Yeah.
Yeah. We were
Especially
nomads
when you
for a
had
while.
the fro, Jan.
So
way
how does your wife like being dragged around by her hair?
Oh,
That's
she loves it, man. She
that's
loves
probably
it.
a new thing for
As a
her.
matter of
Huh?
she loves it so much she gave me a wig to carry with me. That's it.
Pebbles and Bam Bam. Yeah.
One of the bad things about it, though, is when they first started, then the government came in and they got into the back door and
messed
said,
it up even
"Oh,
worse, right?
We want access to all of that data. This is supposed to be a private company that you're entrusting your stuff to. Well, now all of a sudden the government has all of your data."
Yeah,
That's right.
Lovely.
Well, I don't know if
And
the
there was
government
another,
has your
wasn't there another
data.
company also? It wasn't just 23andMe. It was
Ancestry.
Ancestry.com,
Ancestry.
and
Yeah.
there was another one though that did it with DNA. I believe.
Isn't Ancestry.com directly connected to?
I don't think Ancestry is the one. They just have.
That's the
birth
Mormon
records.
thing, right? That's the Mormon thing.
That's
I think.
the
Yeah, and
Mormon.
I think
Right.
the one you're thinking about, Fred, is the
I trust
CIA.
them more than the government.
I think that's what you're thinking about, Fred, the CIA.
No. There was another
they've got
company
all our
out there that
data.
was
No,
like
there's the
23andMe.
second DNA.
Yeah, I don't remember what it was called.
Well, somebody has to Google it. That's all I could say. But the reality is, so anyway, so the thought process is that we got to get rid of our data on there, which I've done. I posted something to Facebook, but it's pretty simple to get rid of your data. You go up to your profile, you go to your setting, you go to the data selection, and then you delete your data. Very simple. As a matter of fact, I
on
will
Facebook?
post that in. No, this is not. I posted it on Facebook. No, you go to the 23andMe site, and it's really, really, really simple. I'm going to put you here. I'm sending you the guys the link
Kenny
now.
has a word to say, Mr. Newton.
The simple part came to a screeching halt when the pages wouldn't load. Like the first thing you're supposed to do is grab your data so you have the data in case you need it for anything. And so I could not grab the data because every time I tried to grab the data, it said, "Oops, we had a problem." So I guess a lot of people were trying to grab their data.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm ever going to get my data, but I wanted it deleted. I downloaded some of the reports, but it's meaningless to me. What am I going to do with it?
Well, the other thing is what does deleted really mean? I mean, the government can go into files and undo deletedness. I mean, I don't think you really delete anything ever, do you?
I saw a
you
link
think
this
you
morning.
do?
So
I think you're right,
this
Bruce.
morning about deleting the data, and my response was, "Yeah, right."
So you got to talk to Hillary about that. The only way she was able to do it was dump that acid on her hard drives, right?
Well, no, it's called BleachBit, and basically what that does is it redundantly writes random data sector by sector in a file. That's actually pretty darn good.
So I have a question. Talking about deleting data. So my wife's got this archaic desktop that, and she works for the government, so she has all this crap that she never wants to talk about, right? So she gets a new laptop a couple of months ago, and we're moving everything over to the laptop, right? And the desktop is just this old, technically it works, but it's Windows, XP, and it can't be updated, and the thing is just a disaster. So I have this hard drive, and I want to take the computer to the place where they get rid of, hazardous waste and stuff, but I don't want this hard drive floating around in space. So what do I do with this hard drive? What do I do with it?
You take it out, put it on
hard
your
drive
garage, and you take a sledgehammer to it.
Now,
So,
not
really?
only that,
That's what I do with mine.
I could put some nails through it or something.
Well, no, hit it with a sledgehammer. The biggest sledgehammer you got, just go flatten it. As
not
long as
only
the
that,
ladder can't spin, it can't be retrieved.
here
And
in
then you
Tampa
can
Bay,
gather up
here
all
in-
those pieces and dump them in the recycle bin.
Okay.
Here
I
in
was-
Tampa, may I say something?
Yes, please
Here in
do.
Tampa Bay, there is a company here that you could take your hard drive and they'll put it in and they will shred it. And if you're that concerned about your information, you can take your shredded hard drive with you when you leave.
And put
I got to
put
tell
it,
you something.
put it in a little container like my grandfather and set it on my
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
You can
I
use
mean,
it to make Christmas
set it on my
photos.
mantle. Set it on my mantle.
That's it.
Put
That's
it
it.
in an urn, whatever you want to do. And yeah, there you go.
I got to tell you something. Some of those YouTube videos of the big shredding machines, I've watched it for hours on end of watching them. They shred everything. I mean, they've got these
Yeah.
metal detectors, big, huge metal machines that will shred anything. Car
they're-
bumpers, whatever. I love watching it.
They're currently shredding if you want, but they're currently grinding concrete, 24/7 in the Palisades. You can grind anything up these days, anything you want.
Yeah.
So,
But
Chris, do you have any? I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish.
I was just going to say, if you're that concerned, you're in SoCal, you'll find a company. It's easy. There's tons of them out there, and for a single hard drive, it may cost you $25.
No. Okay. I'll look around. But if
Take
hitting it
the
with a
sledgehammer
will do
approach,
it,
Bruce.
then that's fine.
It's much more rewarding.
It really is. It really is much more rewarding. Just hit it with a hammer.
Hit it with a hammer. Okay.
You mother.
So, Christopher, any update on where they're putting all this shit? Have you heard anything about this?
Waste management is taking it. That there are a couple of obviously there are houses that were built during specific times when asbestos products were freely available, and there are some homes that have asbestos.
I'm more concerned about the gooey shit car batteries than anything else.
Yeah,
I could give a damn about asbestos.
The gooey shit car batteries, I think we discussed this before, they came around with highly specialized equipment. These guys had full frogmen suits with respirators on their backs, and they basically flipped all the Teslas over, scraped all the...
Oh, you didn't say that. You said they were there in suits doing things.
No. So they scraped off the lithium off the bottom of the car. They scrape it off the ground and they put it into these super thick blue barrels with these heavy wire things. And so that stuff's going to, go away to a place for 1 billion years.
Okay.
Well, they can't recycle that?
I don't know if it's cost effective or not.
So on that, today's news is that exactly 75 days after the fire, exactly 4 building permits have been issued.
See, I thought they made a mistake. I really think this was the perfect opportunity to build a refinery.
Did they rezone you?
Yeah, and then what they're not telling you is that they are indeed fast tracking the permits, and pretty much anybody will be able to get a permit within a relatively short time frame. But that's not where the problem is. The problem is going to be on inspections. So the city already is at $1 billion under financed, and God knows if that includes any of their off balance sheet items, unfunded pension, provisions and stuff like this that add up to a lot of money, but they don't want to put those on the balance sheet, so they don't.
So buy some stock in Home Depot.
Yeah. So basically, the issue will be so. For instance, let's say that you've got your lot cleared and you're ready to go, and you've got your permit, and you've compacted, and you've got the forms up for a slab on grade, and you got the rebar laid down. Everything's ready to roll, and now you go to the city and say, "Hey, I'm ready to pour the cement for my foundation. Where is the inspector, and then they're going to be, oh, well, we'll get somebody right out there in 3 weeks.
Is that the city of Malibu, or what city is that out there?
We are in the city of Los Angeles.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, for some strange reason, I thought Malibu was its own city.
Oh, no, Malibu is its own thing. Palisades is not.
Oh.
The city of Malibu is incorporated, and they contract out to the sheriff's department to do their policing and stuff like that. So,
but you're in city of LA, huh?
We're in the city of LA. We are
interesting.
We are unincorporated. And
there was somebody had a report. It's been several years ago now, where they identified the states that their term. It's been a long time, so I don't remember the details. But their term was that some of these states, because of their policies and their unfunded commitments to unions, et cetera, were in what they called a death spiral. In other words, there was no way that the state could possibly recover from what they had done to themselves.
Sounds like California.
Shockingly, California, New York, Michigan were the top three, I think.
Yeah,
and there's probably a few other ones like that along those lines, maybe Massachusetts.
Absolutely. I mean, just as I was saying, the unfunded pension obligations, they argued for all of these rules to the accounting system so that they didn't have to put those on the balance sheet. If they had to put those on the balance sheet, you'd see how underwater everybody is.
Yeah. And that
everybody is underwater. Everybody is underwater.
That the post office, a few years back, they made a rule where the post office had to fund like beyond what the norm was. And that was one of the, I'm not apologizing for the post office because they certainly have their issues, but it certainly made their balance sheet look way worse in that case. And the amount of money that they had to, the percentage that they had to fund with, which was unlike what the states are doing, which is completely underfunding.
Wow.
Yeah, I had a great idea for the post office. If I was running the post office would be a money-making machine right now, because my thought process is to issue email addresses to everybody that you had to buy, but they were guaranteed that you wouldn't get spam. You would not get spam.
Oh,
if you
that'd be great.
And I think everybody would sign up for that. Everybody. Just imagine having an email address that was spam proof.
Who's going to pay
Did
for
your
the
do not call list ever work, Jan?
Say again?
Did your do not call list ever work? Mine didn't.
No, but if you had the address of, like, let's say Jan at USPS, .com, then it was, they would have spam protection. No spam would get through.
The post office is the
What is
biggest
the definition of
producer in the
spam?
world.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is of course, now they're trying to sell all sorts of shit, like I don't know, boxes and envelopes and passports. But it just seems inefficient to me. Inefficient. My favorite mailman, of course, is Newman from the Seinfeld show. He explained there was one episode where Kramer wants to go in and have all his mail canceled. Doesn't want any more mail for any reason. That's a very funny episode. If you haven't seen it.
There's a way to do it. Is to just buy a post office box. If you rent a post office box, you can opt out of all advertising.
Yeah, that's great. My wife doesn't get any advertising in her PO box.
They don't call that advertising. They don't call it they call that bulk mail. That you don't get any bulk mail.
Yeah,
whatever you want to call it. If you pay for a PO box, you don't have to get it. If you get it delivered to your house, they have to bring it.
Right. That's why I had to stop when I was going to Brazil regularly. I had to stop my mail coming to the house because the post office, that mailbox that they had in front of the house, would just fill up with junk mail, and then after a while they couldn't put anything else in, so they would have to stop the mail. They'd take all the mail out, bring it back to the post office, and every time I would come back from Brazil, I would have to go to the post office, wait 15, 20 minutes online to get my mail to find out that there was nothing in there other than, flyers from supermarkets.
Man.
All I want to say is anybody who thinks the post office is inefficient, I would suggest that you go to a sporting event and try to go get a snack. If you want to see inefficiency. And Fred, as somebody who works in sports, you probably know this better than anybody else.
My God, and it's so expensive. The last time I went, I got a hot dog and a Coke. It was for 3 people, and it was like $75. It was
And
insanely expensive.
how long does it take you to go to the restroom? At
Well,
least a
restrooms
quarter
aren't as
in
bad.
football.
Well, if you're a woman, it might be different. But
That's
for the
kind of
men,
a
it's
personal
fine.
question. I don't know, if we want to get into that, but on a good day, 15, 20 minutes. That's about it, so.
By the way, I'm saying it for Jan. Everything you hear here is an opinion, and do your own research.
That's absolutely right. Hey, a friend of mine told me, I was talking about how often I wake up to take a pee in the middle of the night, and of course it's not always the middle of the night because it's like every 2 hours, like I could set my watch to the amount of times I go take a piss in the middle of the night. But he tells me that he was talking to an expert on sleep, and this guy said that you should take electrolytes before you go to bed, and that might decrease the amount of times that you have to urinate in the middle of the night. Anybody have any ideas on that?
No, but you should go find yourself some green noise.
Green noise?
Yeah, green noise. That's what the calm people use, supposedly.
Never heard of it.
There's pink noise and white noise. There's supposedly something called green noise. And it's supposed to make
And
you sleep.
brown. And brown.
Oh, I'm sure. Hey, look, we believe in all noises, every kind of noise here on this show.
Maybe Kenny's going to tune his system to green noise.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, we got to think of a really good spoof on that one. That would be
By the
great.
way, you were talking about Ukraine a little bit a while ago, and regarding to the drones. Anyway, unfortunately, I got bad news regarding Neil Young. Neil Young canceled his tour to Ukraine. He felt that he was going to do a European tour, and then he was going to do a free benefit concert in Ukraine, but he felt that it was too dangerous, and they just canceled the tour. I don't know if you heard about that, but not the tour, but all the shows to Ukraine. He's not going to play in Ukraine. I'm sorry to report that, but just found that out. So I thought I would tell you the bad news.
It's
On
not
the
one of
good
the first
news
places
side-
I'd think to go right away.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you'd go to Las Vegas with Beyonce. She just added a second date in Las Vegas. Now she's doing 2 dates, the 25th and 26th at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, July 25th, 26th. So buy your tickets now or figure out who was working on the crew to get a backstage pass. That's what I say.
I've got a question for y'all. In technical questions, I've had a run on people wanting the Albatross drum headphone. Drummers been asking for personal headphone box preamps, and we also tried through some of the couple of there. Do you know why all of a sudden was there some article in a drum magazine about albatrosses all of a sudden or something like that?
What
I
is
haven't
They
seen
have never
anything.
even heard of them.
Yeah, I've never heard of that either.
Yeah, I believe they're
what's
made
Chris is a
albatross?
drummer.
Maybe it's an albatross.
Well, it's made by some guy in California that doesn't speak English. It's French.
Oh.
They've got
Well,
a
it'd be a
this-
delight
What does
to
it do, Kenny?
speaking
What is
for
it supposed to do?
you hit it with the left. You hit it with left and right out of the console, and it just has a headphone preamp driver for them to control it. And the C version also now has a click input into it, an XLR in.
Oh, interesting.
Wow.
So it's basically
Are
a
you-
crown amp instead of a headphone amp. It's for deaf drummers.
I don't know, but we've gotten with it. I've got another brand that some people like now too. I went blank on the name.
Are you seeing it on riders, Ken?
Yep, I'm getting requests for them on riders, mostly because the drummer's asking for them. I didn't know if
Wow.
that was some article in a drum magazine somewhere.
Haven't seen it.
No. That's it. Well, we'll do a little research. The Albatross drummer in ear monitor system, eh?
Check the chat, guys.
I think it's only a preamp that powers whoever owns, owning your own headphones. It's a preamp, isn't it?
Yeah.
And
What's
preamp.
that brand? What's that brand that I forgot the name of the brand that all the churches like to use so that they give their musicians their own mix? I forgot what it's
Aviom you're
called.
talking about? Aviom?
There used to be
Avion, right?
And there's ear
Avion.
technology.
With Behringer mixers.
Ken, was that what you were looking for?
Yeah, they're saying the Albatross PH9C, but it's no longer available.
Oh, I believe I may be wrong, but I thought these guys were built by somebody who worked for Solotech here in Montreal, and I was seeing them all the time here on tours in this area. They were here all the time, so they were coming out of Solotech. So I'm not sure. Maybe I'm wrong, Ken, and I know that they were great, reliable, sounded good. They were fail safe for many tours that were around me.
It looks like it has more functions than just being a headphone amp, though, right? So it's got something.
Yeah.
What's the other functions?
Oh well,
It's got a couple of talkbacks. It looks like if you look at the pictures.
Yeah, and compressor. If you read through it, there's compressors built in. There's a lot of shaping going on.
Interesting.
Available shaping.
I was going to say that if I tell you, I have to kill you. So that's it. So you.
So Kenny, are you between shows or end of show or before show or what are you?
Just setting up we start weekend run tomorrow, Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
What time's rehearsal?
Tomorrow at 2.
There you go.
Ken, did I see a Midas desk behind you?
Yep, the house has those 2 of those. What are they called? The HD 96 or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
The new Midas.
But don't you only feed them just 2 channels?
No, I don't feed the console at all. I feed directly into the system processor. Like 5 zones of PA.
Smart move.
But then there's a separate monitor console like that. Same Midas console up on stage, and then they use this Midas console for other acts besides us.
God, last time I was in there, they had PM1D at monitors in front of house.
Yeah, those died a couple of years ago, right after COVID or something. So it was hard to get. They were hoping to get like CL5s or something, but they couldn't even get them when they wanted to. They got these Midas things.
So you were using you're on a Digico, aren't you?
Yeah.
So you had the Soundcraft fancy one there. What's it, the VI6?
VI6 for a while, but then that ran out of inputs and outputs, so I had to switch.
So which console do you like better?
Well, the Soundcraft was great, but it was just limited in what I could do with it. But it was cool. But this thing has so many capabilities. The digital platform is just, like if you can think it, you can do it kind of thing. But it's not friendly. You got to be Digico.
Yeah.
You got to think like
I've
a
been
Digico.
saying this.
Like I really wish that the Yamaha consoles, the Rivage series, had come out like a couple of years earlier. Then I would be on.
Ken,
we lost you there, Kenny.
Yeah.
He muted himself.
Yeah. I was going to say, the Studers, Studers could have expanded, Studers would have been better preamps than the Soundcraft and would have been more expandable as far as the amount of inputs. And you would have been able to keep, the Vistronics and actually better sound than the Soundcraft.
Weren't they the same? I thought they were the same console.
No, they're not. Different. They're not arranged the same.
Right, the same, similar front end and similar upper end.
Yeah.
Not the same. Okay. But the thing was, when the VI6 ran out of things, I was like, okay, I need to get something that's industry-wide, very accepted, and has lots of inputs and outputs.
Are you on the SD5 still?
It's a SD5. I have a terrible internet connection. Yes.
Yeah, that's unusual for that kind of hotel in Las Vegas to have such a bad internet connection. But I love that Cyclops look you've got, Kenny.
Yeah, I don't find the Digicos that, I mean, the first time through, they're kind of pain in the ass, but the one thing I will hand it to Digico. Now, I don't know about the Quantums, but one of the things they did is even though every model required its own editor, they all worked the same, so in that regard, once you learned it, you could go to anyone, because I've mixed on the original D5, the SD5, the SD9, the SD11, and
Ken and Wayne, don't you find that the screen has just got too much info on the screen, and it's really hard to get around? Plus, getting your finger at the right place on the screen is also deadly.
Oh yeah, I could tell you all the bad features of the Digico platform, but I have a feeling that's a lot of that's been rectified in the latest console, though.
Okay.
Like the 852. That 852 looks really killer, but yeah, there's so many bad things about this platform, but that's just one of them.
In the
I mean, the
latest
one thing I
upgrade-
wish that Yamaha had done with the Rivage and now the DM7 series that Digico has done and Allen and Heath has done is that they have, the amount of horsepower to process. And then you, in the Digico and the Allen and Heath, like the Avantis, you can say, well, I want this much of it to be matrices and that much of it to be mono auxes or stereo auxes.
That's pretty handy.
That's one thing I wish that Yamaha had done with their higher end stuff with Rivage and DM, is that they'd have made their horsepower a little more flexible because their architecture is locked. Now, having said that, in corporate land and with my Yamaha Waves card, I'm a Yamaha guy, and but if I was mixing music and that kind of stuff, I don't know, probably Digico
So
would be.
you know what I have to say. I've been at the.
There's now a PQ card for the DM7 with Waves. Are you going to get one of those, Wayne?
I will consider it, depending on if I get over the fact that I'm not trusting the DM7s completely yet, because they do stupid shit sometimes.
Well, just for the sake of those people that don't know, what is a PQ card, Kenny?
I'll let Wayne explain, since I have such a horrible connection.
So on the Yamaha QLs, CLs, even going back to the M7, the LS9, whatnot, they had what they called a YAGD slot, which is basically a slot that you could put a processing card in. Either light pipe out or extra analog out or extra analog in. They had a whole bunch of them. And when they went to the Rivage, they had their own slot for the Rivage, and that probably has to do a lot with 96K sample rate, et cetera, but they also on the main engine had a YAGD slot still, so you could use the legacy cards. With the DM7, they've done away with the YAGD slot completely, and they have put in, what do they call it, a PY or whatever it is. So they've done it.
How many channels? It's 64 channels instead of 16 now.
Yeah, so it's 64, and it's also set up to work with them at a 96K sampling rate. Although you could do it with the older cards, but you'd lose half the process. So there's a whole bunch of things to it. And so the answer, Ken, is I don't know if I'm going to or not. That's $1,000 would be awesome, but I'm not sure if I'm doing enough to warrant spending the money. I might just go with the computer that I run my Waves on. I also put Performer on, which is basically the full circle from 15 years of using Waves, coming back to basically native, although it's a little bit faster. And I don't need 64 channels. If I get 18 on a USB card, that's on the USB connection, that's probably how I'll interface my Waves if I start using DMs more.
Well, the issue I have with DMs is they put all these plugins in, and just that dance plugin alone will take up half the DSP power you have in the console.
It surprised me. Yes, it does take up a lot of space.
Yes.
I was like, oh.
Because
and you start running out of stuff, so you got to sparingly decide what you're using.
Right, because I have to me, in corporate, the money plugin in my Wave setup is probably the number one money plugin is the WSM, the ambient noise, their Cedar. which is the same
So-
thing as dance, basically. And on a little corporate, I'll have it on every group and every record output.
That was
so,
the driving reason why I got the card.
I got a whole
that.
bunch of them, and on a DM7, I can use maybe 3 or 4. It's like, and then I have to give up everything else. So I'm like, well, this is
But
that
then,
didn't make me too happy.
but then what Allen and Heath did is they came out with their plugins things that was in a card. So you have 10 different plugins you can use, but they have DSP to run all of them multiple in the console. So it comes a card that has the plugins and the DSP all together.
Wow.
Yeah, but you also have to pay either a subscription or an upgrade fee, I believe, with the.
It sounds like the Yamaha box. What's it called? The AN, the box that Yamaha makes. That's a server and a interface.
The RIU16 or whatever.
That thing, yeah, that's it. Yeah.
But I'm not buying one of those either.
So do you trust using USB on the DM?
Well,
mainly what I guess I'm asking is, do you trust your computer to be solid and not crap?
Yeah, because it's the same one that I run SoundGrid on, and that's the only thing that machine does. So it's the one I use, it's a NUC, so it's an i7 16 gig of RAM, terabyte drive, or half ter I don't think the drive is tremendously huge, but
and this is Windows operating system.
I'm just saying that the ability of that running native like that, like you said, you're going full circle back to what we used to try, and it sucked. Now I feel like kind of uneasy.
Well, I think the USB that they're currently using is better. I've never been a huge fan of the actual physical USB connections because, they pop out too easy. So you got to be careful where you physically put your shit. But Denny, what's the question?
Well, the fact that you're a SoundGrid guy and your wave plugins are important to you, does the LV1 Classic do anything for you? Like, you find it an attractive possibility?
Well, our good friend Mike Kars has some LV1 capability that he uses, but it's mostly his own thing. I mostly work for either direct producers or AV companies that already have the gear. So if you buy an LV1 Classic, it's the same problem that everybody's always had, is who's going to pay to ship your shit around for you, as opposed to them renting out their own gear, which is what they're in business for. And I've
Wayne,
just never found it to be
Didn't you buy a QL5, Wayne?
No.
You didn't own a QL5? I thought you owned a QL.
No.
So it's the same exact story. Yeah. But what Mike said when I talked to him, when he was like using it on one of his first gigs, he was really proud of the fact that he was getting paid and getting paid well for his LV1 or whatever it is.
Well, he's got a few things where he can use it, but the people that I'm working for, and as I'm slowing down into semi-retirement and only going out once a month or, twice in 6 weeks or whatever, I just don't see the ROI in my particular circumstances. It's not that I'm opposed. I think Waves has done a brilliant job with their stuff. But it's got to make sense for that individual,
Yeah. Okay.
I played with the LV1 a little bit. That's their digital mixer, right? And one of the earlier versions of it, a friend of mine has it, and he was doing monitors with it, and I was not overly impressed with the response of the faders. But that was one of the earlier versions. Who knows what's?
I'll tell you, I got a little quick demo of it at NAMM a few months ago. It was very, very impressive. I was
really. Oh, I should check it out. But yeah,
so
they've come a long way in a short period of time.
Yeah,
if you got an extra 10 grand laying around and you want to get into that platform, you can get some serious shit happening with that.
What? I am done buying stuff.
the early LV1s, if you wanted physical faders, you were using either their fit controller or some other MIDI controller or something like that, as opposed to the new one, which is a purpose-built console.
Yeah, the guy
which
I
is
had
really
it looked like it folded down on the front and it had like 12 faders on it, and you looked at a TV screen and pushed these virtual faders, and I was just
Yeah.
like,
I mean, you know, Steve Keithy had built his own, he built about 10 or 12 of these consoles with multi-touch screens, and he was using the SAW
well, you mean
SAC,
the
sorry,
software audio
SAC.
console. Who's that? Who
Yes,
was doing that?
Steve Keithy,
Steve
who
Keithy.
used to be in Atlanta. He lives in Nashville now. Used to be like a well, Show Solutions and then AVHQ. He was like their first call A1, and for a long time he got the company to ship his consoles around.
Ship that whole thing all over the place. Yeah, I couldn't believe he pulled it off.
There's a lot of care and feeding, you know, and of course
these days
like
I don't think he would get that done.
That console is a very, very capable console. That's pretty impressive. But what I didn't like about it was in its first generation, it was like faders. What faders? They didn't really believe in faders. And so, and I talked to, what was it? Bob Lentini designed it. And Bob was like, you don't need faders. I was like, I said, yes, I do. I do need faders. And so I was like, very careful. But do you know Alan Richardson, Wayne?
Name sounds familiar, but I know Keithy built it with basically with Behringer 8-channel, like 3 or 4 8-channel MIDI fader banks. Is how he was controlling it.
Yeah, Behringer. Everybody wants their life to be, relying on Behringer. That's great. But
well, I don't. Well, the Behringer was just the MIDI controller. It wasn't the software.
I got
you. It was just the physical.
It was the mic. It was the mic pre's though, and the whole SAC console
stuff. But Alan Richardson was doing monitors for Elton John for many, many years. You know Alan Richardson, right, Jan?
I do.
Anyway, so he was doing monitors for Elton John for many years, and that's what he used, SAC, for that show. It was amazing. I was amazed that he was using it on that show. Is what I mean.
Oh, there you go. And we have it.
The Clare Brothers has that console somewhere, or whatever you want to call it. Thing.
Well, speaking of old school, man, Kurt, you've been going old school. You're going back to the future there. I see. A Meyer MSL3 rig. I'm impressed.
Holy cow.
Well, it's not a whole rig. It's 4 boxes, but it's we're going to use them for side fills. They're perfect for that. I've got all the amps lying around. I have racks and racks of Crest amps that I haven't used in years because I don't use power amps anymore, but apparently I guess I do now.
With some UMs, the UMs as well, eh?
You
got some UMs?
I got 6 UMs, and I'll probably get 6 more from a local guy here, and that'll be the E or F monitor rig, I guess, when all the new stuff's out.
So,
but when I'm done with them, they'll look brand new. They'll be completely restored, refoamed, repainted, everything.
So the MSL you use with the processor, right?
Yeah, I got to get the processors. They didn't come with them, but
I
didn't know that.
I was wondering.
I didn't know it until the whole thing was a weird deal.
Yeah,
just put it out.
Well, could you hot rod those with like a Galileo or a
you out here, Chris,
or whatever?
Well,
see, Chris?
Arguably, you could possibly smart them and transfer the settings into some kind of a DSP. Galaxies don't have crossovers. You'd have to make them out of filters, so you'd be better off using something else. I've got a whole rack full of QSC DSP3s from back in the day that ran my proprietary wedges, and a 6-mix Crest 7301 rack that's still very well done and well built. I could conceivably do that, but the one thing you can't mimic is the speaker sense, the feedback from the amplifier that tells you when to do the limiting. Yeah, it's a big factor. So I'm going to try to. I can find them. Yeah, I got sources.
Well, wasn't it the M1 processor, I think, or the M3 processor?
The M1 is for the UPA and the UM1s. The UM1 is just a UPA with a slant cut in it, basically. And Jefferson Starship was using. Well, I've got the conical one, so that is different. There was a UPA with a conical horn, but from what I understand, Starship was using the UPAs for some things and said, "Hey, can you make us a monitor out of that?" And that's where the UPA came, or UPM 1A came from.
Or the UM one, yeah, UM.
The UM one, You have one, yeah.
The I my the first PA that I had in the room that I was working on about 25 years ago, it had four UPAs aside. Um, and when we upgraded to the CQs, I couldn't get rid of the UPAs, and I needed good monitors. So we turned our 8 UPAs into monitors. We put ears on them on both sides. We would put four with the horn on one side and four with the horn on the other side. So you'd have a pair, and I went and got a whole bunch of M1As and stuff like that. And so imagine having on the floor in front of you 2 UPAs. They weren't great for, bottom end for bass players and drummers, but for singers,
Are they sitting next to each other?
no, you just,
Oh,
like
use them as wedges, you mean?
yeah, we were using them as wedges.
Oh.
And so we basically took the rigging off of it and then put longer screws, put the boards. I forget what they were, but they were on an angle at about I think 35 or 40 degrees shooting up, and we put four with the horn on one side, four with the horn on the other side, and so that gave me 8 mixes. And if we needed to, we put two in a singer or whatever. And man, oh man, you know what? They just got rid of them this year for some M4s, some DNB M4s. So those wedges,
those UPAs are great for that.
Yeah. Oh,
so
yeah.
you had the horn was basically vertical. Then you had a
Yes,
very little
exactly.
horizontal dispersion.
Exactly. So they weren't good when you stepped away, but if you sat on them, they were great.
Fantastic sounding box, yeah.
In
Yeah,
1982, when I was mixing Maynard Ferguson, we did the Playboy Jazz Festival, and it was McCune, and that was early the Meyer, whatever they called that Alaskan bookshelf speaker, that gigantic, whatever it was for the mains, all powered by Crown, and then the monitors were actually, like bookshelf speakers that they had a wood stand that they kicked them back on to make them be monitors. They were actually rectangular
that would have
boxes.
been the JM3.
The JMs and the SMs. I use those back in the early 80s when I used to do a Malibu fire department. We did a fundraiser at Pepperdine University for fire department to buy another fire engine. So all these bands came and played in the gym, and I had six JMs per side.
This speaker was like 8 feet. It was like 10 feet wide and 6 or 8 feet tall. It was just one gigantic box per side. It was like the JM
what
10
year?
or
that was their
82
stadium speaker they had, wasn't it?
82?
That was a Jam 10, wasn't it?
I think it was, the 10.
This
That's
is
what they did the Houston
stadium
rodeo with for years.
Wow.
No, not an 82.
Later on, they came up with the MSL 10.
MSL 10, yeah.
That was a beast.
So what I wanted to tell you guys, not like it matters because we all play with big consoles, but I'm redoing this theater in the Museum of Tolerance, and first time I walked into their control room, they had a SQ5 in there, the little Allen and Heath, and of course they had patched it 9,000 different ways, and they were having problems like out the wazoo. And I said, well, if you're not gonna buy another console, because I thought immediately of calling Jan and saying, hey dude, you got a QL5 you want to sell me?
Yeah.
I couldn't get him to do it. And I said, I could probably get you a pretty good deal on one, because I know at least one person that has a couple of them. Chad does, and he's got some QL1s also for sale. And I said, I know 2 people that I could probably find you one. And he was like, nah, we can't spend that much. I just need you to fix this theater with what we have, and we can add the boardrooms later. So I came home and I started watching the SQ5 training videos on it, and downloaded the program and started to build the new version of what I was going to do in that theater. And I realized that this stupid little console actually, when you turn it on and set it up on the app for your laptop, lets you choose. It's got 16 mix buses and 2 matrices, but you can go in and change the configuration around to be like groups and auxes and more matrices or less matrices and all these different ways. And I thought, Really? Alan and Heath, really?
That's what I was saying before
Yeah,
about Avantis and the Digico platforms. I haven't worked on the SQs, but I know on the Avantis, you can. That's exactly it. That's why I wish Yamaha had kind of done that with the DM series. Is like,
Yeah.
make it. You got so much processing horsepower. Make it do what you need it to do instead of being told what you have to do with it. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why Allen and Heath has basically taken most of the market for
Little
well,
consoles.
everybody's frozen, so it must be me.
I have yet to play with the Avantis, and I've wanted to. It looks like I've talked to a couple people that mix on them all the time, and they love them. Have you had good luck with the one you're doing for Subaru?
They've got rid of it. So now the
Really?
full blown got rid of it. So now it's a DM7 up in the booth. I'm still mixing the press on it, QL5. It has its pluses and its minuses. You know,
Dave
it's a
actually
nice console,
spending
does some cool stuff.
Dave is actually spending the right money for things, huh?
Yeah.
I have at least 3 friends that owns SQ5s, SQ6, and a couple of Vantas, and they all have the same problem though. They need to find a way to drive the system. Like the last time I was with a friend of mine who was mixing on his SQ6, he actually had to ask for 8 dB of gain to drive the PA properly, and that's like a recurring problem. They all seem to be lacking.
They don't have a lot of output horsepower.
Not at the output.
Probably European consoles are based on 0 dBm instead of +4.
Well, that's what the whole thing with the Galileo was all about, is regular consoles didn't have enough poop to drive the Myers stuff, right?
Yeah.
Has that got
anybody?
Back. Well, I don't know about that particularly. Kurt would know that one, but I know back in the day, one of the reasons when digital consoles were kind of early on, and a bunch of people that I worked with had DM2000s, I finally got to the point where I would not mix on that console in a live situation because you had to fuck everything 12 ways from Sunday to get enough gain out of it to drive a PA. It drove me crazy.
And there was a problem with it. The summing bus would clip at the bottom at the input of the right-left fader, so you'd have to do a really funky gain structure to not clip the summing buses of the DM2000. So
yeah,
they
were built to be ADAT. They were built to record ADAT stuff. You know, it was all -10. So
the Midas consoles. Mobile TV Group once upon a time got hold of a bunch of Midas consoles, and they were all European, pin 3 hot, 0 dBm consoles. And so when they'd go in and try to do a TV show on them, you had to run them into the red. I mean, every red light was on the console when you're mixing it. But they had +24, headroom.
They had a lot of headroom.
You couldn't clip anything to +24, even though they were a 0 dB console. They had 24 dB of headroom. So you just ran the shit out of them, and they sounded great.
So your 0 became like +6 on the meters in the red?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Way more than that.
Oh my God, that's unbelievable. I'd have a hard time getting used to seeing that.
Oh, I know. It's so weird to sit in front of the board. You're like, this is completely wrong. Every red light is on the console. There's something wrong here, but it sounds fine. There's no clipping. There's no distortion. It's just you haven't reached the end of the meter bridge yet, because you still have a few more. Because I think each segment was 3 or 6 dB, on those little meter things. But
yeah, that's what I noticed about the SSL. I played on one time, and I'll tell you, man, that console is so clean. And I tried to get that thing to crack, and I stood on it, man, and lit it up like a Christmas tree, and it sounded freaking great. I couldn't believe it.
Well, the digital ones that they're going to drop into Cronkite, where I'm doing the Sun shows, it's the whatever the last version of SSL. They've had it out for like 10 or 15 years, but
is it their road console?
Yeah, they went from the 500 to the 550 to 300 to the 350s. So,
but whatever it is, it's still the same console. They just upgraded it. But anyway, it's the same thing. You can on the fly go in and change the configuration. Now, like on the Calrex and stuff that I work on, you have to commission them, and then the desk is what it is. But
Oh,
the
it stays that
SSL,
way?
I could go in on the fly, and it gives you the total amount of horsepower, and you can say, okay, I got 32 inputs, I got 16 auxes, I got 8 subgroups, whatever. And then as long as you got more DSP, you can add or subtract, or you need some 5.1 groups or whatever. You can just watch it on the screen. As long as you stay within the parameters of the horsepower, you can do it all on the fly.
So really, so you could change it after you built your console?
Yes.
Oh my God. I didn't know that any of them would do that. I thought you have to start all over again.
No, not on the new on that SSL.
Oh man, that is really cool.
And the sonically, the venue which I just retired from, but I'm still close to the guys. They just bought a 550, a 350, and a 100, and they did a shootout. Sonically, nothing sounded as the depth and the width sonically of the SSL stood above everybody else. So they tried Yamaha, Digico.
They put it against a Rivage?
Yeah,
The
did them all.
Rivages sound really great.
Yeah, no, I agree that the Rivage, the problem was they liked the Rivage, but there was the same Yamaha issues that we were just talking about.
Wow.
And
So
meanwhile, Kurt is biting his tongue going,
okay, well, go for it,
let me
Kurt.
get my fucking gamble up there.
Yeah,
That's right.
want a console that
I'm
you
gonna
can't
make
flip
all
and
of you
has
cry.
all the depth and width you can imagine.
Yeah.
The real treat of the thing I just did, that whole deal, the Meyer stuff, was the 32 channel EX that I got. That was the actual object.
How many gambles do you have now?
That's EX number 5, and I've got an HC40, so I have 6.
Wow.
Now, do you get calls to rent these out, or you just use them when you need to?
I use them when I want to, and I leave them in places where they'll get used by other people. I've had a couple of tours.
That you trust?
Well, I'm there. They don't go anywhere without me, or one of my guys. But we'll use this new 32 channel for support out at Marymore, and I'll have the same 56 down in Bend. I've had touring guys say, leave my console on the truck. I'm not going to ever get another chance to use that. And I've had a lot of guys who are, the headliner saying, well, if I could, I'd use that, but there's no way I can. But hey, kid, mix and support with your 20 inputs. Leave your M32 on the truck and mix with this today, because it's going to blow your mind.
Yeah. Kurt, why
M32?
Yeah. Kurt, when they say they can't use it, is it because there's too many scenes in their shows?
Yeah.
What's the reason? It's the cues, right?
It's the repeatability and it's the cues, and But I've had headliners who don't have that kind of band, that are more regular rock bands or country bands or jam band kind of stuff that they don't want to use snapshots anyway. So.
Yeah.
So do you bring a rack of EQs and compressors and limit gates and all kinds of stuff with it?
Yeah, I have a double wide rack full of all drummer and BSS and Eventide and Bricasti and
sweet.
Yeah. But you're seeing that now. You're seeing that now. If you look, there was a post of in Branko's group on or I think it was maybe Hey Audio Student, I don't know, but it was Kendrick Lamar's 2 big racks of outboard processing.
I see that all of the time. Almost nobody shows up with just a console and does everything in the desk. Everybody's got external reverbs. Almost everybody's got analog external summing, analog mix bus insert chains, all that.
Yeah, I mean, even Robert
Toby's
does
been doing that for a while. I mean, it's a remade from when he did the Chili Peppers last year or the year before, whatever it was. I just can't believe he's got the Stones, even if it's this reissue, to haul that Fairchild around.
Yeah, that's
that's the original. That's the original Fairchild, isn't it? Didn't he get it from?
He's got
the one that Tony did.
He's got a studio that he keeps that one in, I think. But the one he's got in the rack, I think, is a reissue.
Hey, Kurt.
Telefunken or something.
Yeah,
like that.
Tony from Telefunken. It's the last thing he did before he passed.
Hey, Kurt.
Yeah.
If you had a call from Rich at Blackbird, he just got an EX56 doing. He's been kind of getting it together and teaching kids on it at Blackbird. I didn't know. I gave him your number to call if you needed help on finding parts.
No, I haven't heard from him, but I'd be happy to talk to him.
All right, I'll check with them.
I mean, I haven't had to replace.
Join the Gamble users group on Facebook, right?
Yeah, that's the place to be.
I have to tell you, I'm impressed. Your Gamble group has really exploded.
Yeah, over 4,000 people. I thought there'd be 20.
Wow.
It's impressive.
It's great.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Holy
cool.
shit, really? Over 4,000, Kurt? Are you serious?
I'm serious.
Oh my God, I had no idea.
All over the world too.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's really insane that, I mean, the old school way is, the young kids. Now, I was curious to know, when the young kids come in, are you seeing any young engineers come through?
Sure. A lot of the support acts have, guys in their late 20s, early 30s.
And how do they react when they see an analog console?
Most of them have never used one. So several of the people that like in Bend, we had a lot of people come through, and like I said, a lot of times it'll be the old guy that's the headliners guy who'd say, if I could use that today, I would be using that today. It sounds much better than my every digital console ever made. It doesn't matter. They all say that if they could use the Gamble, they would, or if they could get away with it, they would. But this happened like 5 times last year where the headliners guy, went to the kid and said, like I said, leave your M32 on the truck, on your trailer, and use this because it's going to blow your mind. And I had to help him. I had to do all the inserts, and I had to like get everything right, and convince them that the silk screening is not backwards. It's actually in the right place. Everyone else is wrong.
It's like upside down.
No, it's not upside down. It's where it should be, so you could read it correctly.
Oh, that's funny.
If you turn it right, it still gets louder and higher. If you turn it left, it'll get quieter. So the knob is correct. The silk screening is just in a place where your hand and the knob don't block your view, and you don't have to lean over the top to see what you're doing.
See, I think that like the Yamaha 1000s were like that. The gain knob was gray, and it was like, when I looked at it, I thought, why is this upside down? But it worked perfectly.
Yeah.
Kurt,
It was so funny.
What I don't understand is, with such great consoles and the fact that you've got everything that goes with it, I'm just surprised that something's not out on a tour, that that you're using it at your venue. And I get it, you're using it at your venue, but I just don't get why that I understand that maybe you don't want to ship out, or you can't ship out a full PA out, but why is somebody not grabbing one of your consoles and rack for a tour?
It's come up many times, and that will happen.
It will happen?
It will happen.
But the question is, Kurt, do you have any systems on tour, or are you all just local shows?
It's local. We are actually. Are we still live?
Yeah. Yes, we're good. We're about to stop, so I'll tell you what. This is a perfect time for me to say, hey, thanks for watching, everybody. This has been our 252nd meeting, and I want to thank you all for coming, and thank you for watching. Remember to click the like button, share the show, and I'm really interested to continue this conversation. So